Howdy y'all, this is AR Cavly. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to just do a quick walkthrough of how to do some of the things for 1,000 Dead Worlds. Because there were things that I didn't quite understand, and I've asked Alex T, the author, and whatnot. And I'll be doing them rules as written as best as possible, even though when I did my review, I described it as a game I really liked, but had some glaring things that to me that I was going to play differently, but I will describe them as written. And I'm just going to do it very quickly just to give people an overview and show how, or at least how I took away the understanding to do some of the basic game loop things. All right. So we're going to head on over to the table, which is like right there next to me, and we'll start some basic stuff. All right, so first, of course, we're going to start with the character creation. Now, the character creation is very straightforward, so I'm not actually going to go through the process. You assign 12 attribute points. Among those, 70 points among your skills, and then roll traits. Instead, I'm going to pull Armin Hargest, and there's a name chart you can roll to name and background. Armin Hargest, he's my second level guy. I'm gonna put him in a fever dream and pull him out of the his current mission, just to use him as the example. So his nervous tick is he starts sniffing, and let's see, we'll go ahead and we'll put him back to 0 stress starting off. All right, so here are his skills, and initially I had built him when I first started, because I've had him for a little while, to be a close combat character, but close combat anyway, is kind of a mixed bag, and just you have a bunch of rounds to shoot someone before they get there. So his talents is that he can charge, and so he can get extra damage and to hit. And the talent he got at second level is neutralize, which he can neutralize an ability of a foe, which I don't know, maybe not always that useful. All right, now over time, he has bought himself a level 1 hazmat suit, and he got himself a fire slinger, which is a submachine gun with a little grenade launcher underneath it. And he got himself a lockpick, emergency suit sealant, and this is where he's at right now. Now, since he's a return customer and not a newbie, let's head back. And this is normally, I mean, you could do the downtime. You could do it before a trip or when you get back, depending on what you feel like. So downtime activities, he's already paid to get irradiated, and he's paid his weekly, because while you're still there, while you're out flying, someone's got to pay for that room. All right, so we're just going to say that he does some fun carousing here. And carousing is a D66. So a 4 and a 4. Come over here. You wake up in the garden, sleepily rolling over flowers, probably that cost thousands of Drake crowns. You better get out of there fast. All right, so no direct mechanical effect on that one, but yeah, he definitely doesn't want to have to have to explain or pay for those. Although it's better than Wesley tramping on flowers and about to get executed. So carousing is one of those things you can do. Now you can spend time bonding, and it says you can do it once per cycle, but I generally limit it to one or two, kind of one per week, because I figure you're not going to be doing something that's notable all the time. You can train or study. Studying is kind of a weird one. You roll d20, and if you're going to study, you pick a skill, and say I pick my range combat. All right. I got over the range combat, so according to this, you get advantage on your rolls next mission. Roll all related tests with advantage on your next mission. That's pretty powerful, especially in a combat role. But you could also do resolve. Um, I don't know. Maybe you meditate and smoke the mushrooms or or whatever, and so that helps you be less stressed when you're making your stress tests throughout those. Um, So that's what he does. He's just gonna go carousing, and I don't want to throw off the normal combat flow, so I'm not going to worry about rolling with advantage on that. So he spends his week. Now this would also be a good time to use the GM section to come up with some NPCs, maybe interact with some NPCs. As we go back here, not the gear. This is where you make the characters. I could look at, let's see if there's something going on. Is it, rumors going on in the station? Say 14 and 3. So we'll say 14. The One World Network has some massive layoffs. All right, I might work that into the game by saying maybe there are some newbies that I might get partnered with. People who now have nowhere to go. Or I might roll it as saying that maybe there's some kind of fight because these guys are angry. Maybe there's some kind of strike or a picket line. Maybe if I had a contact. Now those aren't rules in the game itself, but it's a solo game. You could put it in there. What happened at last night at the Red Asteroid? 7. Somehow the place ran out of whiskey. So again, no immediate direct effect, but if I wanted to say maybe people are a little grumpy next time because the bar ran out. So those are the kind of things you can do. You can have contacts. Maybe you could say, well, I have some whiskey, and maybe make a couple extra Drake coins. But instead, we're going to go ahead and head to our mission, the mission control. Now, the way it's described is, kind of like a, bunch of roughneck kind of things. But I suspect that for those, once you get ready to go on a mission, that you're going to undergo training with your crew. Kind of like astronauts, because it's a big investment, and the Drake Corporation is going to, they're investing a lot of money, and they want to make sure that their operators are not a bunch of hosers who are going to ruin all their all their stuff. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got to select a ship. Let me get my sheet over here. Now I always put the ship on the back of the site sheet. That's planet. There we go. That's the site sheet. The back of the sheets. So I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna use my site sheet. This is what we use to fill out our reports. My table is not quite as big as it would be nice to have, but so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down what's on the front here. So this is KRM 01. It's a circle. These things float, 20 inches above the ground. They're one person, and it has a total of 50 and 32 are free. All right, now that stuff that is not free, they're taken up by the O2 bottles. All right, so we're going to make a name for our ship because that is tradition. And this naming table is pretty cool. I've come up with some pretty good ones. I think the last one, the one they're on the planet in his main campaign right now, is called the Atomic Utopia or something like that. All right, so 38 and 4. So this is the Triumph Blue. Not the best name, but or I'd call it the Blue Triumph. Either one, I guess. Or you could just roll the 1 and call it the Triumph. All right, so now we're making our trip to the destination. This is what we start with. This is what the company provides. Now, for my character, usually what I did is I just kept the stuff on the sheet because otherwise, you'll be erasing the sheet and everything. This is what it starts with. He has a standard, and you can buy extra. He has a standard loadout that includes extra oxygen, extra ammo, and extra battery. I just have it noted there that what I purchase at the beginning of each mission that's extra is 75. Okay, and then when I go through this stuff, I just put little tick marks to show that it's being used instead of erasing. Although obviously I did erase some on this because you'll end up erasing a lot on the character. He has 2 alloys and some data cubes, but that's from this other thing. I'm not going to erase those, but we're going to ignore those for now. His background was that he was a warlord, and he won the lottery to get to the station. His life-changing event is he was involved in a terrible car crash. I always kind of pictured maybe one of the other warlords maybe set something up against him. And then his drive is power. And the other details, I just use some of the NPC tables. He's practical, and he likes to tell relevant stories about his uncle. They run across some trap they have trouble getting through. It's like, one time my uncle, Yosahamaman, he got through a trap just like this. Now, it doesn't provide any bonus necessarily, although I guess you might let it. But it's just a personal quirk that you can use. All right, now I'm going to send him on his own, just so it'll be easier to get through and show the process. And this is a process as I understand it, having asked several questions, read the fact, gone through the book multiple times. If you're watching this and you see that I did something absolutely wrong, please go ahead and make a comment in the bottom, just so that someone who looks for this video later on, that I don't necessarily steer them wrong. All right. So the KSA crew package, this is what they provide on every trip. Again, as written. When I'm playing, they provide enough oxygen for everyone to make the full trip. But, if you can dump the extra oxygen bottles out, they're like 2 each. And once they're spent, you can, put gear or put your treasures back in there. So survey scanner, medical kit, thruster pack, survival kit, the oxygen tanks, and supplies. So I usually write this stuff up here to keep track of. So of the 50, we've got O2 times 6. And I'm going to be risky, and I'm going to just go with this because those oxygen tanks are a little expensive. All right, and then supplies. Supplies are, food, water, sandy wipes, whatever. All right, so 6 of those. And then I have the survival kit because I carry it, and the thruster pack. Oh, I'm pointing to something you can't see. I have the survival kit and the med kit. I just always transfer those to my backpack. And then I have the thruster pack strapped on my back, just in case. Now, I purchased the level 1 hazmat suit, so if I need it, I take it with me. Because you can get to a site where you can't explore because you need something you don't have, especially in the beginning. as you're going through and early on, you're buying equipment. That equipment really is going to be things that will help you explore more places. All right, and everyone is assumed to be, with a gear harness, oxygen converter, and two shoulder-mounted LEDs and comms. All right, according to KSA, 20% of all deep divers chicken out at the last minute. And then random travel events. And the way the random travel events work is there's a cumulative chance every week. It's going to take at least 1 week to get to whatever the site is. All right, now we're not going to do the site now because you don't know what kind of site you're going to be on or even if you're going to be on a planet. So I always wait to figure out where I'm going first. All right, so each week there's a 20% chance of a random travel event. And as far as getting there, which is back here on the other side, is there is a 40% chance per week. There's a 40% chance per week, and then plus 10 per week that it arrives at its destination. All right, so the first week, we're just going to roll. And when you could use any kind of journaling book or whatever, but I find that just jotting the notes down on the back of that sheet helps. It's just an easy place to write it down. So I'm going to put week 1. All right, is there an event? 57, no. Do we get there this week? 37, yes. All right, so we get there in 1 week. Eventless, and we arrive at our destination. So that's good for him because instead of these things, it's good for them, maybe not as good for the examples. But if we were to get one, we would roll a d4. In the case of 2, so we'd have a ship malfunction. And this is one of those areas I was talking about in my review where it's kind of the same little loop. And so it's easy to kind of go back and forth. Ship malfunction event, D10. Roll the 1. And on the cabin begins to depressurize. Intentional sabotage? That might be an interesting thing to take because the atmosphere, everything else, the ship and the engines and navigation, all the things that are the ship, they're just empty. It's just a big alien empty circle. Everything else, all the sensors, the furniture, accoutrement, life support system, because there's no life support system inherent to the ship. Drake puts it in there. Each crew member may attempt one hard technology check to fix it, but if all fail, they must don vac suits or pass a con check to avoid passing out. After 1 hour, any characters without a vac suit die. Now that kind of leaves it open as to whether or not you're just trying to get that vac suit on and then continue repairs, or if you just have to work with your vac suit, because if that's the case, you're using 1 oxygen pellet or whatever per day. So if we were to, I guess we'll pretend, since it's part of his fever dream, we'll go ahead and do that. It's a hard test. And when we look at our skill playing the game, let's see if I can find it fast enough. It's back here in the rules. I think it's in the rules. Yeah, here we go. So it's a hard. So that's -10. All right. So there's no way you're going to actually be able to fix that unless you roll a 20. Have put, well, even if you'd put 10 points into technology, which isn't a bad skill to put into. All right. So not even close. I only have 5 in it, so I got 11. So whatever that end result is, he's not going to be able to fix it. And there's no further instructions on that one, so what do? It's venting. Maybe it's venting outwards, but you can take that oxygen supply and hook it straight to your suit. Of course, that gets into the problem of waste disposal and things like that. But those are the kind of events that happen. In this case, we only had the 1 week and nothing happened. All right, so our next is to see the arrival. This is where we arrive. Where are we going to go? 73. The site is a station or outpost orbiting a planet or moon. All right. So the first time I made one, it was a big, tall tomb orbiting a dead world. Just for the sake of quickly running through how to do it, we're going to actually say that it's a the cruise ship touches down on a planet. All right. So, since we haven't actually encountered a site yet, because when you land on a planet, there may not actually be a site. There's a chance there's a site, but it's not a sure thing. So all of our site rules and loops are back here. So we're going to start with a planet. All right, so let's start with the noun letter and number. 5 is going to be HK Mormo. And 7342. Got to have those 4 digits at the end to give it that kind of aliens feel. LV426 or whatever. So the planet lands at HK Marmo 7342. Now, technically, that's something that they're going to come up and name when you get back, but we're going to fill out the sheet now. And that's kind of cool. You don't know where it's going, and you have no idea where you're at in the galaxy. I mean, it might even not even be in the same galaxy. You never know. All right, planetary diameter is 4, so that's going to be 4,000 miles. I'll say using miles and feet and stuff in a sci-fi game. I'm an American. I like my feet and miles, but it seems a little out of place. But Drake is a Scottish company. I don't know. I'm not from the UK. I'm assuming that Scotland uses the metric system, but so it doesn't really bother me. But it's something that does kind of hit my mind every now and then. Now it is a narrative game, so when you come up with again a game where you have traveler, your size affects your atmosphere, your gravity, things like that. But this is more narrative. It's not really a planet generating simulator. Let's see what our atmosphere is like. It's thick. Atmosphere density is thick. All right, constant pressure of these dense atmospheres almost comparable to being underwater. So kind of like it is outside right now. And let's take a at the temperature. All right, it's 85 degrees of Fahrenheit. All right, so that's temperate. So it's at least comfortable temperature-wise, so we shouldn't have to worry about anything like that. There is sometimes a little disconnect between the planetary, and it's the average planetary climate. So when you roll up your biome, you may get something different than the average planetary climate. Sorry, I'm not showing all my book here. Is it a single biome planet? 1 through 8. No, it's not. So what you do next is you determine the type of biome that you land in, the initial biome, and just by game convention, the area on the map is one biome. So if you go off the edge to explore another biome, then you would generate another, or off the edge of the little map here, then you would generate a different one. All right, so our initial biome is going to be 9, volcanic. Okay. This probably means it's going to be nice and hot. Volcanic. Okay, active volcanoes and flowing lava cover most of the visible area, making travel a serious endeavor. Characters without a coolant layer suffer a -3 to all actions and spend 2 oxygen pellets instead of 1 each hex. Now, like I said in my review, this is where it doesn't really the resource tracking doesn't mesh up, because you have 1 hex is actually like 6 square kilometers and takes an hour. So that part actually matches. If you're going across a hex 3 miles roughly, being generous, give it an hour. That's going to take up 1 oxygen pellet because it's your time. Here it says you're going to spend 2 oxygen pellets instead of 1 per hex. And then traveling from 1 hex to another causes +2 time instead of +1. All right, so it's hot and yucky, with lots of lava and shark boy. Let's see if there's lava girl and shark boy. Let's see if what we see in the sky. 19. During the daytime, a bright red sun shines high above, bathing it with the planet in its red light. All right, so I'm just going to say bright red sun. Just as a reminder of how to do that stuff. All right, now I'm going to roll here and roll a d20. 18. All right. So that means it's 900 hours. I generally myself, if I roll higher than 10, I assume it's tidally locked, but 900 hours is a long time. So do we get there at night or at the day, or night or day? Even we're on the night shift. Oops. All right, so it is the day. So day night is 900 hours. All right. Now this is the section that I kind of confused me when I was first getting up, was the biome activity. The biome activity is directly related to the number of possible known threats that you can have. Now, the Spitter, Clobber Taker, Cybane Bomber, and Cicalia, those are these known monsters that are big bad. You're really probably just supposed to run away from them, but this is where you determine how many of those you might encounter, which is separate from the number of unique encounters that you might find. All right, so we're going to roll our d6, see our biome activity. 3. Fairly quiet. There's 3 possible encounters. All right. Now, on this one, there's no real place to put it, so I'm just going to put it down here. Fairly quiet. 3 possible known encounters. We'll go back over that, see how that works once we get to the site. We're going to wander around the planet, and then we're going to find a site just so we can make one. All right, exploring the planet. Like I said, with the in my review, I discussed the fact that the resource management, wandering the planet, is a little more abstract and doesn't match up. with strictly with keeping the time. So given that they are larger areas and it makes it a little generous, but it keeps it kind of, I think, in the spirit of how it was supposed to be, we're going to say that we're just exploring one hex for an hour. So each hex of movement will use our resources. All right. There's 100 hexes here. We're going to determine our starting hex, which is 34, which I know you can't read that. I can't even read it. All right, where are we at? 29. Okay, there we go. So here's our starting hex. That's where our ship lands. So we're going to make our exploration of the planet start with that hex. All right, now each hex has a you're rolling the terrain difficulty table to learn more about the terrain. I'm going to say that there's no real match for across the top for the starting one, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just going to roll 2d20 and pick one to start with. So 9 is going to be this column. Sorry, I keep forgetting that part of the book's off there. All right, so 9 is that column, and the second column is going to be 13. So 13. All right, so it's going to be hazardous. The hex terrain is not easy to deal with, whether it's steep cliffs, bubbling lava, or swift. The crew takes +1 time to cross it, and all characters must pass a dex check or suffer d20 damage. Okay, so that is not bad, or is bad, I mean. All right, so hex details. I'm going to write down hex 34. And it's hazardous. So I will go ahead and take care of that. Now, like I said, the time stuff is a little different. So the crew takes +1 time. I'm just going to put a little column here to keep track of all those extra time marks. And then I'm just make one for hours to keep track of hours. So it's going to take us 1 hour to cross/explore this hex where we landed. So that's our LZ. And hazardous and LZ. All right, so we're going to have to pass a dex check or take d20 damage. All right, our dex is only 9, so that's not great. All right, well, I'll keep that one. I don't want to roll in that crack right there. But all right, so he failed. All right, he failed. I'll just call it a fail. So he ends up stepping off, getting close to a steam vent as he's exploring and looking around for something, and this superheated steam scorches him. Ah! Oh, one thing that I did forget is whenever you're at a, that's normally for a site, but it's really for a planet too. 20% chance that you need a hazmat suit or a vac suit. Okay, in this case, probably hazmat, but let's go ahead and roll it. All right, so he needs a hazmat suit or a vac suit. Now, the other, if that happens, then you roll again to see if it requires a hazmat A suit, and that makes it a 40% for that one. All right, so no. And I think, let's see, I think I'll just say that on the surface, it needs a hazmat suit. All right. Now he's got an A, so he's going to be wearing that anyway. But in the case if that thing gets damaged, see on my sheet here, see I have a vac suit and a hazmat suit, so I just put them both there and just mark which one I'm wearing. So he's got his level A hazmat suit because he bought that after getting radiated, although it wouldn't have actually helped him with the the radiation burst that he sucked up. All right, so that's one terrain. That's one hex, hazardous, and of course we know what the planet is like, so we're going to guide our narration based on that hazard. All right, whenever you do the exploration part, you're rolling this planet side exploration. That's one of that is one of the strengths of this game, is that it follows an understandable and pretty common set of rules. Like I said, those little exploration loops. All right, so let's see what happens. Planet side exploration. All right, a 5. All right, you find nothing of interest, so it's essentially empty. However, whenever you move to another hex, we'll say it's right here, and we'll see a similar mechanic. 35. We'll see a similar mechanic. You need to roll to see if there's any of these known events whenever you move to another hex. Okay, that happens on a 1 or a 2, just like it does in a site. So no known events right here. We're in another hex, so now we're going to actually we will start just so we can do it. Whenever we roll, here are all the biomes. The biomes have their own pages in here, and we roll on these things. We're a volcanic, and every so often, I think it says 5 hexes that you explore, you roll on this volcanic sites. Now, it's really more narrative, just to see what's going on. 5. Large boulders falling from a mountain and splashing into a lake of lava. All right, cool. So there must be large mountains with boulders falling off into a lake of lava. So that's kind of what we're seeing as we're wandering around. Now we see here our volcanic hazards and obstacles. This is what happens when we roll. That's where we look if we roll for those bad things to happen. All right, so let's see what our next hex was. Now that we have we know what our starting hex type was hazardous. So we're going to roll d20 and then consult this table or this column here. 3. So it is still hazardous. So 35 is hazardous. Hold on a second. Did I? Yeah, I forgot to make him suffer his d20 damage last time. All right. So we're going to back up and do that. Now, the d20 damage, whenever you're doing the damage, from hazards, you don't get knocked down. It just goes straight to your wounds. He does have a hazmat suit and armor, so I will give him his armor roll to make sure that there's no... or did I? Now I don't even remember. Yes, because he walked by, got steamed, and... Okay, well, at least I know I started, so we'll just pretend that he made it. Even if he did make it, I can't... did make it. I can't remember what happened. But now he's going to make his dexterity check. Okay, this time he makes his dexterity check with an 18. Easy. So he manages to avoid the hazards. Now we're going to go... he's in a new hex. That's going to be an hour. And each hour is going to be 1 off of his oxygen. So we'll just 1, 2. I just put little hex mark or little tabbies right there for his oxygen. So he's been wandering around this volcanic biome now for 2 hours, and now we're looking for stuff. All right, so now we're going to do our planetary exploration roll again. 4, you find nothing of interest. All right, I don't necessarily mind doing that, but since we're actually looking for something to happen that we can go over. 6, okay, you encounter a hazard. Roll on the biome's hazards and obstacle table. So this is where we go back to our biome info. Hazards and obstacles, D10. 3, the ground shakes violently, throwing all crew members to their knees. There's a 1 in 6 chance rubble from nearby buildings. Okay, well, I'm assuming that means mountains. That's probably from like a cut and paste from the urban or something. Yeah. But basically another dex check, or I'm going to take D4 wounds. All right, that goes straight through. So he could die right here. Game over, man. Game over. All right, 12 plus 9. So remember, all checks are for 20. If you make the 20, so he manages to avoid the rubble from the nearby building mountains, and so he takes no damage. So that's our second hex. Now we're gonna go. Let's head up this way. Actually, let's head up this way. We're gonna go back north into hex. Oh, actually, let's see. That should be hex 35. It's hex 43. Numbering's got me fahootered. All right, so now we're going to go up to 35. And so that's going to be 3 hexes, 3 hours. Oh, I also need to put another time tick. And whenever I get 6 time ticks, that's going to be worth another hour of oxygen. So really what I probably should do is make 3. So right now our O2, we've used 3 pellets for the 3 hexes. So now we're going to go back to our planetary exploration. All right, let's see if there's a bad monster in there. One of the known threats. No. So now we're going to figure out what type of hazard it is. So hazardous. 7. Hazardous again. Like a little mix up there, dice. One where I'm not going to end up getting burned to pieces. Oh, okay. I was trying to remember if I forgot to do the damage twice, but he made his dex roll that time. So now we've got another time. So it takes him time to get around, and he has to avoid these volcanic hazards. Does he make his dex check? Oh, no, he does not. And that's a fumble. That's a critical. So you know what? I think I'm just going to give him a wound for that one. Gotta give him a wound, I think. So as he's traipsing along, looking around, he steps on one of those places that looks like it's okay, but as it turns out, it's not. Let's see, banged heads from his last mission. So he ends up stumbling and burning his leg pretty badly. Or burning something pretty badly. Since it's kind of a general injury. I'm not going to roll on the critical table. I'm just going to have him take his hit. And whenever you're wounded, you do suffer a -2 to your rolls from being wounded at that point. And while he's entering around, while he's walking around, let's see if he encounters anything. All right, we're gonna roll, but in this case, we're gonna find the site just so we can move on. Whoops, wrong die. Oh, wrong die again. All right, 7. Hazard and obstacle table. All right, so we would generate. We'll just take a roll and see what that would be. But we're going to switch it to the site so that we can get to the site and learn how to generate the site. Seven. Lava covers this whole area, making it completely inaccessible. The crew must find a different hex to pass through. Ugh. All right, so that would be a drag because then they'd have to, that time would have been wasted. But we're going to say instead, he's found the site. While he's exploring, he is going to take time out and see if he can heal himself, heal the burns, put some nice salve or something on there. The way that works is it's a simple, each med kit has 5 uses. And in order to make the roll, you have to use one of those med kits. So, and I need to mark my 3rd oxygen. All right, so his healing is medical age is 10. So as always, and you can only try healing the same wound like basically once per hour, once per full-time track. So he's going to roll die 10 plus his healing of 10 and try to get 20 or higher. 11 plus 10, 21. So just perfect. All right. So he stops for 10 minutes. That's going to add a small time unit, lowercase time unit, as he does that. But what does he see? He sees the entrance to a strange structure. And he's going to head in there. All right. Now, a lot of times you're not actually going to have a planet. This thing's just going to land directly into a... it's going to land directly on the site itself. Oh, one thing that I forgot to do is whenever you take off, and sorry, this is I should have thought of this before. Going back to the stress, whenever you launch, you get 5 stress from starting your mission. So he would start with 5. Now there are actions that you can take to reduce that. One of those things is meditation, and it will subtract. It'll subtract 5 stress. Now that's stuff that you can do when you're not. You can't do that when you're exploring. Exploring is craziness. It's no bueno. It's scary. It makes you a scaredy cat. All right, so losing stress, there's, you can have sex, you can meditate. Pass a will check to meditate. We'll see if he did that. Get some will check. No. Okay. He has a whole week, and it says you can do that per day. So generally speaking, it's not a big deal if by the time you get there to the site, you don't have any stress because you're meditating, you're eating, working out, whatever, on the ship after you get the stress done. However, if for some reason something happens, like maybe you get into a big fight, maybe there's some kind of personal crew, anything like that. Now, facing danger, going across the lava fields, that is kind of dangerous. So maybe we'll give him 3 rolls, because whenever you face danger, it's +2. So that includes like when you start combat and everything else. His will is 10, or it's actually resolve. Every time you take stress, you can make a resolve to reduce the stress to 1. You always take the 1, but all right. So nope. Okay, yes and no. So he's going to take, I'm going to get, because he did get that critical fail, I'm not going to work it up too much, but he's got 5 stress. All right, once you get up to 5 stress, his nervous tick starts to appear, or once you get up to 3 stress, it starts to appear. Now, and that will keep going until you reduce stress somehow. You don't even have to lose all your stress, just as long as you lose some stress, nervous tick will disappear. So he's sniffing. If they're around people, if he was in the, on helmet comms or whatever with someone, that would probably get very irritating after a while. All right. So now we are going to go back and we're going to generate our site now. All right, so general first stuff, we're going to come up with some names for our site. And it's getting kind of long, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit pause and generate this stuff, and then basically just show you what it did. All right, so I use this table to generate Pluti 928395. And the original purpose, which is just D20 roll, it was a temple. And the story, which you generate to kind of just give the background, it was a source of corruption. The overall site descriptor is that it's wet and cold. So given this is in the middle of some kind of volcanic biome, maybe that indicates that there's still some kind of power or something special about this site that keeps it calm. All right. Now this is one of the areas that kind of confused me a little bit. All right. When we're coming up with the known threats. All right. Whenever the game is talking about known threats, it's talking about these common monsters that they always find on these RSI sites: the Spitter, Clobber Taker, Cybane Bomber, and Cicalia. They're they're pretty rough, pretty tough customers. All right. So the site activity roll, this determines, it has a description, but also determines the maximum number of encounters of known threats that you can take. Oh, 6. All right. So this is very busy. A very busy place. All right. So its activity is extreme. So I'm going to log that. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to tell possible encounters 6. Okay. Now the dominant site hazard, this is something about the site itself. Okay. And it's one of the threats that will come up, one of the things that you generate. 6, extreme temperature. All right, well, that makes sense. I want to say that it's, even though it's wet and cold, but it's super hot outside. I'm going to say that the extreme temperature, I think it could be either super hot or cold, given we could run across an area that maybe the ECS, the environmental control system, is going wacky and things are frozen, or where it's failed and things are super hot in the middle of this volcanic biome. So I think since we have both of those extremes available, whenever we do it, we'll just, we'll just let and see, we'll just roll at that time. Okay, if not using a vac suit of some type, this place is impossible to explore. All right, so it's so cold in there, he needs a vac suit. So that would be somewhat unfortunate because he's wearing his hazmat suit because the atmosphere. So we'll just say he was carrying his vac suit, and that's going to take up some extra slots, or he's going to have to go back and get it. But that's one of those things you never know when you're going to what you're going to run into, and you have to hack for every contingency, which of course takes up the what you can bring back in the alloy cubes that you're searching for, because that's what you're out for. You're out for some money. All right. So now we decide the site size 2. I don't know if you can see that as a 2. So we come over here, we mark our site size as medium. Oh, you know what? We didn't even. All right, so we know that we need a vac suit already from that, but we'll. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. All right, so medium size is D10 plus 20 resources and D10 plus xenoanthropological sources, and up to 6 unique encounters. We'll get to that here in a second. So D10 plus 20. So I'll just use the red is the resources and blue is the, or D10 plus 20, D10 plus 20. Yeah, so red is the resources, blue will be the artifacts. All right, so red is up to 26. So we put that in here. This is our max. And as we discover, we mark that off. And then 29 for the artifacts. Now this last one is up to 8 unique encounters. Now when it says up to, and you'll see it on the sheet down here, unique encounters, it gives the die. So it's a medium site, so we're going to roll D6. 5 unique encounters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to put this here. That means that there are 5 unique creatures, five different types of creatures on here. Anytime we run into a critter, we mark it on this list. All right. And the next time we run into a critter, if we run an encounter, we roll here. So it'd be 1 through 5. So D10 divided by 2. If you roll a monster that's already on there, that's what you encounter. If not, then you generate a new one, because this is the max number of encounters that you can, different encounters you can have. Now you can end up with 20 of those encounters, but those are the max number of unique encounters. Now unique is also by the type, because whenever you create a creature, there's going to be like the standard form, the basic form, the elite form. That's still the same creature. So when you are creating different levels of that creature, it still counts as that creature. So you don't have, if you make the monster snipper snapper easy version, and then your next encounter you have to do the elite, you don't make a monster snapper elite. You just put monster snapper and then use them as needed by generated by the results. All right. So as you can see, we have a lot of possible discoveries, yet each one of those is kind of a low % chance that you're going to do it, or that you're going to get one each time you roll. So you can have a bunch of areas. Now it suggests using a a schematic, making a schematic. And I think we will, when we do that, this game just has so much to it. I'm already at an hour. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to just wrap up the creation part, and I'll have to make a new video for exploration and critter making. All right, so it does suggest using schematics. One of those things you can do, you can just draw little maps. You know, what I kind of liked doing or like doing is making like just a little point map system. Okay, so this is where we enter. We can randomly determine how many exits there are. But we'll get into that when we actually do the exploration part, because this this took a little bit longer than I was expecting. But we have the information for our site. Let's see, did I miss anything? Oh, I guess I could put a planetary descriptor there. And this right here, this is where we keep track on the site. That's where we keep track of our, not only our possible encounters, but our timestamps. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Then we reset the time clock is the word it uses. Or the phrase it uses. All these reset, they're clear again. I always put like a little hash down there, hash mark, tick mark, to show that 1 hour has passed. When it resets, that's when you use your oxygen, batteries, and ammo, if applicable. All right. But we're at an hour, and I think we've covered about all we need to at this point. I'll make a video on how to actually... That's an example of running through the site and exploring the site. I was hoping that I could get everything done in one hour video, but like I said, there's a lot of stuff in this book, which is good for the solo player, because that means that there's a lot of gaming. All right, I hope that was helpful, and like I said, I'll make another video, and happy gaming.